watched my fair share of scary movies. Good ones, bad ones, good bad ones. And they usually teach us the same messages, that every creepy basement is haunted and everything older than your grandmother at a flea market is cursed. If this is presented as so matter of fact from Hollywood to our relatives, then why do so many people label you as superstitious when you even talk about them? So I got thinking, why haven't I seen a ghost? I haven't seen Bigfoot in the woods, or a shadow figure standing at the end of a hallway. And I've been in hundreds, if not thousands of hallways in my life. So I'd like to know, can a group of amateur ghost hunters find evidence beyond a doubt of the paranormal? Ghosts, Sasquatch, and the Loch Ness Monster. They're all things that scientists have yet to agree are real, but still are researched by thousands of people every year. Why? Why spend hours in a tree stand looking for a Bigfoot when a majority of people might say it doesn't exist? Why sonar the bottom of the Loch Ness for a creature that's been claimed to have been seen only by a handful of people? Why start a documentary series about amateur ghost hunters on the journey to find evidence of the afterlife? I don't know, but our next guest may. He's asked these same questions and dove into the thick of it, attending ghost hunts and Bigfoot conventions to research the researchers and get to the bottom of this mystery. Welcome, Paul. Thank you for joining me on Phantom Rivers today.
Thank you very much for having me, Daniel.
Could you tell me a bit about yourself and your title?
Yeah, so my name is Paul Kingsbury. I'm a professor of geography at Simon Fraser University, and I'm also the Associate Dean undergraduate for the Faculty of Environment.
So I know you studied paranormal investigators, but it wasn't quite for the paranormal side. It was more the investigators themselves.
Yeah, so the research, I pitched in the grant proposal was that academics have studied the paranormal, the supernatural themes, phenomena quite a lot, actually. So typically in popular culture, think movies, magazines, literature, of course, and folklore. This is through the lens of cultural products, myths, and so on, and cultural practices, but not really studying people themselves, as you mentioned. So I'm a geographer, so I look at the what I call the lived spaces of the paranormal investigations, examining who, why, how, and where people engage in paranormal investigations. As the research progressed, though, I would say it was impossible to separate at times the, on the one hand, people, and on the other hand, the paranormal phenomena that they were studying. It was things, as usual in social scientific studies, get quite entangled, and that's a good thing. So I wasn't simply observing people studying the paranormal. I would come to help them. I would come to get involved in those investigations as well. So that was actually one of the many surprising and good things about the research.
So what got you into this research? Like, what kind of sparked all of it?
It's a pretty interesting topic. Some would say very controversial. So I got tenure at Department of Geography, Simon Fraser University. So I was interested in doing something out of the box, something that would not be my kryptonite for research. I do not like getting bored when I write. Writing and research is very hard work. And if I'm not thoroughly engaged in the topic at hand, I can't, I struggle. If one writes, one has to do so with desire and passion. And I felt some big questions about extraterrestrial existence, visiting the Earth, ghosts bring to the fore the possibility of life after death, an extant hominid lurking in the woods that science says doesn't exist. These are interesting questions, but what really makes them interesting is that there are a significant number of people who have had encounters with these various phenomena who swear that they have genuine, inexplicable encounters that they themselves often can't believe. So that kind of intrigues me. And there's been a big surge too in the kind of mainstreaming of paranormal topics, particularly investigations. So think Ancient Aliens on a History Channel, Finding Bigfoot on Animal Planet. So this is also part of the research, is to inquire into why this mainstreaming of paranormal investigations on ostensibly educational TV channels, which of course is quite controversial for some. So I wanted to do something that would engage my mind. There was a massive gap in the academic research where people hadn't really looked at real life people who spend a lot of time, money, and effort studying these phenomena. So that was a good argument that I thought I could secure the research grant. And I actually spoke to a colleague at SFU Geography, which is a wonderfully supportive department to work in since I joined in 2005. And a colleague who kind of looked at these various grant proposals at SSHRC over in Ottawa, I think. And I pitched him my idea. I said, well, I'm thinking of studying UFOs or something similar in terms of the cultural geographies. And he told me, you know what, you should really apply. You should pitch that grant theme, because a lot of the time the committee is pretty bored with the stuff it receives. This would be really interesting. And that kind of emboldened me to write the grant. And I think everyone who's vaguely interested in these topics has a long-standing interest. So, growing up, I grew up in England. This is before the internet days. I'd subscribe, getting in the mail these kind of supernatural, paranormal topics, these monthly magazines that would come in the mail. So it's always captured my imagination. So there's many reasons, I guess, Daniel, for what kind of led me into this, the research program.
You mentioned just kind of the reactions of people. What was tended to be the usual reaction when you mentioned that you were studying Bigfoots and aliens and ghosts?
Once that grant was landed and applauded, it gave me a lot of legitimacy, I think, in terms of, okay, so he's got in tenure, he's not going in some kind of wild direction with his research. And I made it very clear in that grant proposal. And I often do, when I chat to people like yourself and colleagues, that I'm not studying the paranormal phenomena per se. I'm looking at the investigation cultural geographies, although the paranormal phenomena, whatever they are, is in part of this process of looking at the people and the culture. I would say, though, the grant certainly gave me a lot of legitimacy. I would say SFU, particularly a lot of universities, academic research thrive by asking, unusual or different questions. And I would say I've received a lot of support from colleagues at SFU. I've received a lot of support from the paranormal investigators I've worked with. They see me as someone who can also legitimate their kind of cause and help them with their various missions. I think I was really surprised by a lot of media interest once around about 2016, 2017, when I started to attend UFO conferences, go to crop circle conferences. We have a list of research expertise at SFU, and the media often check in for interviews. So Halloween, I was on the front page of the Vancouver Metro newspaper, 24-hour, these 3 newspapers circulating. That was kind of interesting. There's this kind of fascination of the professor. Is he like Agent Mulder in X-Files, like studying this stuff? So that was kind of another surprising response, I would say, by the media attention devoted to the project. I got the Newsmaker Award at SFU, Media Award SFU. That was good. I think the most negative comments I've seen are some of the comments in the Vancouver Sun newspaper or the Globe and Mail when there's feature stories on me. People suggest it's a waste of taxpayers' money when they see that grant being given towards me, which the money goes towards mainly training the the graduate students. So some people don't want academics to be studying this stuff, but actually the paranormal topics are thoroughly important because whatever your take on them is, they're completely embedded within our social, cultural narratives of how we make sense as human beings, as people living in various parts of the world. So they're not kind of marginal topics. They are central to our life today in modern society.
That's actually how I ended up stumbling across you and the research that you were doing. Was I was researching all of haunted sites in BC and then different people who maybe have studied this in the past. And I did see quite a few of yours, and I thought, like, this is perfect. The sole purpose of this show is to have a group of people who have never ghost hunted before. But yeah, like you say, with media in the beginning, it's such like a heavy part of our lives, even if we don't want it to be. Like media, music, just art, so much of it is definitely influenced by ghosts or myths and legends.
I really like how you framed it. Like there's so much of a part of our lives, even if we don't want them to be. And so I should mention that I draw upon a psychoanalysis quite a bit in my research. So psychoanalysis essentially engages issues of desire, fantasy, the unconscious, anxiety, all kind of themes that are rippling through paranormal topics, a lot of movies on the paranormal and so on. And one of my findings was that people who get involved, particularly UFO ghost investigation cultures. So why do people join ghost hunting groups? Why do people go to UFO conferences? Is that they've had some kind of paranormal experience, something that supernatural experience, something that they cannot explain by recourse to science or natural laws, something that completely shocked them. And they often join a ghost hunting group or maybe call one in if they're experiencing these things, or they go to a UFO conference, which will have these experiencer sessions where so-called abductees, that they call them experiences because it's not always unidirectional and violent. Often it's something that hit them in it was a lightning bolt. They weren't expecting it. It may have sometimes people get traumatized by this stuff and they don't talk about it again. Whereas say another family member decides to drop everything in life and pursue this with massive passion. So I do like how this that little phrase that not always it's not something that we incited or cultivated necessarily when people have encountered a UFO in the sky or a ghost that appeared on a staircase in their home. It's often something that breaks into the mundane world and leaves an indelible impression on their psyche or in their lives.
So while you attended these ghost hunts or anything and you're hearing these stories, was there a part of you that even a little bit was kind of thinking maybe there might be something to this, or was it an academic looking the whole time?
Classic question. Like many of us, perhaps yourself, I know of people who I trust very well. So I include my mother and father in this, and actually a colleague at SFU, who has seen a ghost or experienced a ghost. Like my dad, for example, heard of his mother's voice while he was shaving in England during the morning, saying, "Don't worry, it's going to be okay." He felt a sense of love in his core of his being. And then later in that day, he discovered his dad died in Ireland. He's in England, and that it was unusual. He knew it instinctively. It's mother's voice, which was unusual because she died shortly after he was born. So those kinds of stories kind of resonate strongly if you're growing up with your dad, who is very straight-laced, and colleagues who swear they've seen ghosts. So in working with the ghosts, I come into the research with these things, and working with the ghost investigators, I would say, personally speaking, I didn't encounter anything that I would say, yeah, that was definitely a ghost. I was always expecting, oh, is this gonna be the moment where I say, yeah, I think that was a ghost. You have these moments where there's the possibility, and that's a crucial moment, the possibility of a paranormal phenomenon occurring. For example, in the police museum in Vancouver, in Gastown, there's there used to be the morgue room in the basement. It's about 1 a.m. I'm with Northern Paranormal Investigations. We're using a spirit box, a ghost box. It's scanning through radio frequencies. You see these on TVs. There's a Faraday cage over the top, and there's like a Q&A session with the potential being spirit on the other side. And it was pretty unnerving for a couple of minutes, where I felt it sounded like some kind of articulate conversation. It's all very late. It's all very dark. It's all very scratchy and fraught, the coherence of the conversation. But there's things that I would really like to dwell on. I'm writing a book at the moment, slowly but surely, especially with COVID. But on my findings, I've got a few other pieces that you've mentioned there, Daniel. But there's certainly encounters during the ghost investigators, which was interesting. I can talk more about examples, but also within those investigation groups themselves, you do have kind of skeptics on there who that these are people who are not necessarily saying they don't exist, but they're kind of on the fence, or it's kind of where I'm coming from in a sense. But they're quite heterogeneous, these groups. They're not full of people going into someone's house trying to prove there's a ghost. First and foremost, they're trying to falsify or claims that that someone has seen a ghost, or someone's convinced they are being haunted. They're trying to debunk it, with their various gadgets, looking for EMF, frequencies and energies coming from behind people's walls, behind their beds, and something that gives them nauseous or feelings of uneasiness. So it's a highly complex culture as well, this stuff.
I did read your chapter in A Place More Void, and in it you kind of mentioned an empty thing, and kind of what I pulled from it was almost the research and want for it to be real can replace the actual thing in your mind and make it a thing. Where I think it was compared where at a Sasquatch conference, it makes it real to people just because there's this much energy that goes into it.
Yeah, so that's a good read there, Daniel. If you think about the role of desire in paranormal investigations and the paranormal as well, think the X-Files I Want to Believe poster, right? Which I actually have in my office door outside. That really brings to the fore this the wanting to believe, and so I'm really interested in that relationship between desire and belief. And in many ways, Sasquatch exemplifies the paranormal object, right? But paranormal essentially means beyond conventional scientific understanding, which demands observations, measurements, predictability, and so on, and certainly conventional science. And the paranormal object as such cannot fulfill those things. In fact, it wouldn't be paranormal if it could be predicted, easily measured, routinely observed, and so on. So in a sense, the paranormal object is the object of desire par excellence. Like it's the perfect object of desire, because you can never quite catch up to it. It's always just out of reach in terms of this closure of empirical proof demanded by science. But on the other hand, the paranormal object is an object insofar as it's a non-empirical object. That is to say, just because you can't measure observe or predict something, it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't exist. Rather, it's just a different sort of thing or object. So, we know that science can't explain everything. It certainly falls short of, thoroughly engaging issues of meaning, truth, all of the things that theology and philosophy deal with. And, when we navigate our lives, often we're dealing with a lot of non-empirical objects, in terms of love, for example, how love can send us crazy, can in many different ways. And so we know that culture is suffused with lots of paranormal entities, things that can't be measured or easily predicted, and so on. And so in that chapter, the Sasquatch chapter, essentially, when you go to the Sasquatch conferences, one of the most treasured objects on those tables in the convention hall would be the casts, which are essentially a kind of an impression of an absent object, allegedly a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. So it's, in effect, it's an impression of a void. Something's been there to create that plasticast, but it's no longer there. It's been voided out. So if you have a lot of people gathering around, so I'm kind of paraphrasing what you were saying there, Daniel, if you're getting a lot of people going to that Sasquatch summit in Quinault Beach in Washington State, they're pouring forth their testimonies. There's video recordings. There's sound recordings of alleged Sasquatch. There's a lot of kind of sublimation at work. So this is drawing upon the work of Sigmund Freud, who talks about the rechanneling of libidinal energies into cultural processes. I kind of work more closely with the French psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan, who suggests that sublimation involves the shifting of an object in terms of something in fantasy space. Essentially, it's this raising up of an entity. It could be a sound, it could be an image. It raises it up to this kind of very dignified, resplendent place that kind of transpires, radiates this powerful enigmas. The technical term is jouissance, or the French term for this beautiful radiant enjoyment. And so, in a way, these Sasquatch conferences, the very kind of pursuit of the paranormal is incited. People are pulled by this strange object, this paranormal object. So people are kind of pushed by the object instead of them kind of going around with a net trying to catch butterflies or ghosts. True, they try to do that in a sense, but they're also magnetized by these objects as well, which is thoroughly important for the kind of the grip of that very practice of paranormal investigations, and in fact the glue of social bonds that kind of cohere around these various arenas, be that in a conference or in a field research site.
After attending all of these and dealing with so many different groups, what would you say to someone if they were like, oh, I really want to get into ghost hunting, or I think there might be a Sasquatch and I'm going to go research it?
Yeah, so there's a lot of online presence for these groups, so they're easy to locate online. They are. I found that the ghost investigators and the Bigfoot researchers, there's a lot of kind of community. There's a lot of appreciation for different viewpoints. I would say, as soon as someone starts to say, hey, I know the truth here and this is what's going on, you guys are wrong, or that's you, just like academia, you could quite quickly get considered a daft know-it-all or something like that there are very social kind of groups these people. I think they depend on trust as well to work. They take their work seriously, and if anyone is found to be kind of causing disruptions or trouble with the actual investigations, they don't last long. They will ask them to leave, or so trust is crucial. So I would expect, I would encourage anyone who's interested in engaging with them to reach out. Certainly send them an email. They're online, a lot of them.
Is there any other publications you got coming out, or is there a place where people can find what you've already wrote?
I have my SFU geography webpage, and there you'll see, I think I uploaded an article called Go Figural on crop circle conferences. So I attended a crop circle conference in England. It's looking at the way in which landscape, which is a key geographical concept, is a space of opacity, or kind of mystery and enigma, and how that plays in with the my experiences at that crop circle conference, like getting lost in the English countryside in a little car with 3 Americans in it. So I'm playing with the overlaps of the banal, the everyday, and the extraordinary. So that's available online. I have the book chapter in The Place More Void, a co-edited book on geographies of absence, silence, lack. So often we think of geography as kind of solids, right? Stuff like from mountains to built environments. Whereas this co-edited book with Anna Sakor is about geographies of absences, the opposite to stuff, which is nonetheless stuff itself. And I'm currently slowly working on a sole authored book, tentatively entitled Investigating Paranormal Investigators, where I will try to bring a kind of narrative voice to do justice to the research, insofar as it's people telling stories and encountering very kind of poetic, extraordinary places in the world. So as a cultural geographer, I'm really interested in the poetics of space, of landscape, and you think about haunted locations in northern BC. There's always a kind of mystery to these things, which and I think the best way for me to translate my research to a general audience, not just academics, is by using stories. Oh, and by the way, have you seen a ghost or a Sasquatch?
So jumping into this, I have not. I have not had any personal ghost experience. There's a couple maybe like kind of weird experiences, but nothing that I've like seen an apparition or have seen like a shadowed shadow person at the end of a hallway or anything.
No close encounters then, huh?
No.
So you know about the shadow people?
Yeah. I love researching this stuff, but have never had an encounter myself.
You know the Hat Man, right? With the kind of the shadow with the kind of hat at the end of beds.
I have.
Yeah, so I was teaching about that in my a lecture on paranormal consumption. And so I talked about Coast to Coast AM, the radio show, and the various themes, and the Hat Man. And then this one student, when she saw the PowerPoint with the figure of the Hat Man, she was like, "Oh my God, how did you how did you know I saw that?" Like she had this experience of seeing the Hat Man at the end of her bed when she was younger, but didn't know it was like a cultural kind of thing. Like
oh, weird.
And so for her to see that in the lecture at the university, and not knowing that other people knew about it, that was quite a moment in the classroom.
That is super freaky.
Again, it's that overlapping of the extraordinary ordinary, that a lecture, prof lecturing on paranormal consumption, people spending money on paranormal commodities, and that was a good moment.
Well, it has been fantastic having you on. I think this has been a lot of really cool information, and maybe a little self-reflection for myself as well.
Good. Yeah. Well, keep me posted how it goes, Daniel, and say hi to Megan, and happy to help.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. So that's our interview with Paul Kingsbury. There's a lot to digest from that interview, and probably a bit of self-reflection for me. Next time, join us as we take everything we have learned, pack our gear, and take on our biggest challenge yet. Canada's Annabelle, Mandy the Doll.